My house in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest, golden grand piano, my beautiful Castillo. You, I leave it all. My acres of land I've achieved. It may be hard for you to stop and believe, but for you,
New Order, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, and for the 70s and early 80s my iconic band was Kraftwerk.
Obviously the Beatles were a big influence when I was a kid. I preferred the Rolling Stones, but the Beatles were a major sort of thing in the early 60s, obviously. They're my first big memory of music at that time.
I first got into music when I was about 9 years old, and my mum gave me a record player, and I inherited her record collection, which was very much 50s and 60s crooners, pop stars. I quickly moved from pop into soft rock, which I think most teenagers pretty well did in their age group, and it was my life because there wasn't really anything else in the mid-1970s. The rock bands of the 1970s were very symphonic. They thought outside of the box, and you'd always get something different. It wasn't predictable. Not just a case of downloading something or streaming something. You brought the whole package, the artwork, the booklet that came with it. As you listened to the record, you'd read the album sleeve from cover to cover. It was a whole experience. My all-time favourite album, and it still is an album I bought in Christmas 1977. This one. All-time classic album from the Electric Light Orchestra, Out of the Blue. It sums up kind of pop rock symphonic sounds. You know, you had 70 minutes of great music on it, and it was the first album I bought brand new. I'd always had second-hand ones or singles before that, but double albums in that time, doesn't sound a lot now, was about £4.50. In 1977, that was a lot of money, and this album still works for me now.
The iconic person for me was Bowie, I think. I actually got to meet him one day, and that was pretty thrilling. He asked me for a light because we were sitting in a barber shop, and I was a hairdresser, and I went to visit some friends that worked at this barber shop, and he asked me if I'd got a light, and he smoked Gitans, French cigarettes, which really stunk, and he was just a really nice, humble, kind man. Yeah, lovely. Bought me a coffee.
Music has changed since rock and roll kind of started in the late 1950s. It's evolved in so many different ways. You had the beat bands of the 60s, the psychedelic rock of the late 60s, then you had the bubblegum pop of the 70s, prog rock. In the 70s you also had disco, two-tone, electronic music of the early 80s. It's just constantly evolving all the time. It all goes back to rock and roll, even grunge of the early 90s. And the bands you got now, it just keeps reinventing itself in different ways. I think the artists that have truly stood the test of time, and certainly judging by running a record shop, because you know what sells, it's the classic bands from the 70s. You've got Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, David Bowie, just constantly sell. You can go back to the 60s, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. There's a saying in music that death is a great career move, and it certainly does help. Bands, artists like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, only had a very small recording life, but their albums just carry on selling. They're kind of iconic, and I always wonder if they'd lived, if they'd been such an iconic artist.
Give me one good reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if that this will go away. My friends and family, they don't understand. They fear I'd lose so much if you take my hand. But for you,